Summary. God fucking damn it! Izuku yelled. Everyone turned to look at the green-haired child. He was sitting on a chair in the common room of the dorms, pushed away toward the window so he would have some privacy. He was holding his phone sideways, and it was obvious he was playing a game. Iida sped forward. Midoriya-kun, how shameful! You know better than to curse. It's unhero-like, he called, his arms swinging like they always did. Without even looking up at the taller teen, Izuku retorted. Well, neither is attempted murder, yet we're not expelled. Iida froze, even as Todoroki stifled a short bark of laughter. The class was confused, and Aizawa was shaking his head in annoyance. Chapter 1. The Discovery. God fucking damn it! Izuku yelled. Everyone turned to look at the green-haired child. He was sitting on a chair in the common room of the dorms, pushed away toward the window so he would have some privacy. He was holding his phone sideways, and it was obvious he was playing a game. Iida sped forward. Midoriya-kun, how shameful! You know better than to curse. It's unhero-like, he called, his arms swinging like they always did. Without even looking up at the taller teen, Izuku retorted. Well, neither is attempted murder, yet we're not expelled. Iida froze, even as Todoroki stifled a short bark of laughter. The class was confused, and Aizawa was shaking his head in annoyance. Well, that doesn't matter right now, Iida sputtered out. You should know better than to curse, Midoriya-kun. I know you're childhood friends with Bakugo-san, but you've never cursed before. Hey, Ojiro stepped in. How about we ask why he cursed? Maybe there's a good reason. Izuku answered before they asked him. I was playing Among Us, and the imposter killed me. A large portion of the class let out a noise of sympathy. The game was popular during the infamous 2020 pandemic, and had recently resurfaced due to a gaming company that was reviving classic pre-quirk games. Most have played it, the Baku Squad in particular. Mina, in particular, did a dramatic sigh, falling into Kirishima's arms while sighing. Standing up, Izuku closed the game and went over to where his laptop was on the table. Yeah, it sucks, but luckily for me, I know just who the little shit was. Curious, some of the class stepped closer to Midoriya, who sat with his face to them, his screen hid away. The green-haired teen opened Discord and hit the first contact in his list. 2 seconds later, and the video call was answered. What now, brat? A weirdly familiar voice asked. Tenko Shimura! Izuku yelled. The onlookers flinched at the volume, and at the furious face on the normally passive teen. Oh, you meant I killed you first again. No shit, Sherlock. I'm sick and tired of it, so I'm gonna fucking ruin this round for you. Ignoring the stammering protests of this Shimura person, Izuku yelled even louder so the mic would pick up his voice better. Dobby, you fuck! The imposter's crusty balls! No, you little shit, wailed said crusty teen. Thanks, Greenie, called the hoarse voice of Dobby. The class froze. Izuku nodded in satisfaction and closed the call before shutting the lid of his laptop, looking up at his bewildered classmates. Deku? Was that the League? Uraraka asked quietly. Then the class exploded with questions. You said Dobby? Dobby as in my lost brother Toya? Why are you playing Among Us with the villains? Midoriya, are you a traitor? Stand it, you stupid Deku! Can I join? Everyone paused at that, turning to look at Kaminari, who grinned sheepishly. When they turned back to Midoriya, they saw him missing. The chair he was on empty. They didn't see him for the rest of the day. The next day was Sunday, and everyone was gossiping at breakfast about yesterday's events. Nobody could find Midoriya except for Aizawa and Tsukauchi, who had confirmed that Midoriya wasn't a traitor, but apparently had refused to answer any of the questions. When they finished breakfast, they turned to the living room and saw the source of their muses. They walked forward and stopped when the green-haired teen held out a hand to halt them. There was a grin on his face, and it was not one that anyone liked. It reminded them of a villain's grin, and no one was comfortable with how well it fit on Midoriya. Shh, Izuku said. I'm in the middle of being an imposter, and Shiki just killed Spinner, and Togo's nearby, which means that As soon as he said the word now, the screen on his phone flashed, showing that the red-colored figure of the Among Us characters had pressed the emergency button. Izuku switched his focus to the open laptop in front of him, which showcased a Discord call, with audio but not cameras. He turned himself off from mute and listened. Toga's ecstatic voice came through. Shiki-kun was an admin, and it was so bloody and cute. Uraraka cringed at that, but the blonde girl's voice continued. And I didn't see anybody nearby, but I was a bit distracted. Well, Dobby's voice drawled. I did see Kurogiri in navigation. Excuse me? The portal quirk user's voice came through. It was tinged with horror at the accusation. I was in navigation, but that's nowhere near admin. I was downloading data. Dobby does have a point. You can reach the hallway vent pretty easily. But there's no way you're the imposter. You're awesome! That was Twice's contradictions. No way. It was our illustrious leader, Mr. Compress called out. Huh? The hell you say about me, you little cheat? I'm not the imposter, it's you. The raspy reply came. I was in weapons blasting asteroids. Izuku finally chimed in. He was in there. I was doing wires. Krusty was on it. Where were you, Compress? I was in the cafeteria, doing the trash disposal, of course. Which is connected to admin through the vents. And you had reason to kill Spinner anyway, Izuku said triumphantly. Preposterous! Nope, just last night Spinner interrupted your magic show with a throwing knife. The rest of the league joined in, each calling for the ejection of the mask-wearing villain. Voting started, and not 5 seconds later did the screen show the avatar of Mr. Compress being sent out. Izuku smiled as he cracked his fingers, muting up on the Discord again. He grabbed his phone and directed his attention to it. The class took that as a sign to talk. Midoriya-san, Shoji said. Why are you playing video games with villains? Still focused on the game, Izuku responded, even as he walked alongside Kurogiri, heading to electrical along with him. Officially, it's a mission to gain intel on their dynamics and style of combat. Confused, Yaoyorozu asked a follow-up question. Officially, Midoriya-kun? Tsukauchi gave me the mission last night. Izuku pretended to do a task that normally required him to calibrate the distributor. He was focusing on both Kurogiri and Dabi, who had walked in to start his wires. But you've been playing for longer than that, yes? Sarah asked. Unofficially, the League has tried to kidnap me multiple times since the Camino incident. The class vocalized their surprise, shocked gasps ringing out as people frantically asked for more details. Shh, wait, I think something's about to happen, Izuku said, a mad glint going into his eye. True to his word, something did happen, as the vent near Dabi opened up, and Shigaraki's character popped out. In an incredible show of synchronous action, he pressed the kill button on Dabi, just as Izuku did the same to Kurogiri. The black screen appeared, then faded to show a victory screen of the two imposters. The Discord call began to unmute. You fuckers! Dabi cried first, and was immediately followed by Shigaraki's deranged laughter. No, shut up, you hand-finished bitch! I'm gonna burn you alive! Shigaraki only laughed louder. Izuku joined in a soft chuckle, and he quickly said his goodbyes to the League, which was only responded to by Toga, since Spinner and Mr. Compress spoke up to yell their frustrations alongside the burned man. Izuku turned to the class behind him, who stood with pale faces. He sighed and leaned back on the couch to look over the group. After what happened to Camino, Shigaraki seemed intent on capturing me. Since All Might was permanently weakened and therefore pointless to kill for Shigaraki, he focused on to me. Why? Hagakure asked. Probably because the fucking nerd pissed him off at USJ. Deck, you fucking dumbass. Bakugo yelled, to which Izuku just smiled. Don't forget Hosu, Todoroki added. He seemed intent on getting that Nomu to capture you. The class stood confused once more, until their attention was drawn away by Midoriya, who began speaking again. Yeah, well, he got to me the first time with Kurogiri's portal, and I immediately began to try and escape. Turns out he had no idea how to handle it, and had Kurogiri send me back again. I thought it was a hallucination at first, since it was just after a long night training for the licensing exam, but when he tried again just before it, I realized it wasn't. That time he had Dabi threaten me into walking through peacefully, which I did since he was pointing his flaming hand at the nearby corner store. Once I got in, Shigaraki sat me down and basically had a temper tantrum, asking about why All Might was so popular and why All For One was defeated. It was kind of pathetic, honestly. When I gave a vague answer about All Might standing for what people think is right, he sent me out with anger. After that, they happened weekly, sometimes twice a week, always through varying ways. Once, Twice tried to get me through with a pizza, Spinner tried to sword fight me, and Toga even pretended to be a nurse trying to get me to donate blood. Eventually, we just fell into a system. It took about a month before Shigaraki realized how my intelligence could be transferred over to video games, and just as I finished studying for that math test, I was portaled through and landed on the couch, a controller in my hands. We just played Mario Kart all night, and then I was dropped back into my dorm room without an issue. The class's eyes were wide and they were silent. Well, anyway, we eventually exchanged Discord information so we could communicate on when I would drop in, since once he pulled me away from English before the big test to play Ark with him. His eyes furrowed. Now that I say it all out loud, it's really weird, isn't it? No one answered him. Instead, they just stared with their eyes slat wide. His laptop dinged, and Izuku typed out a quick response. "Well, I'll see you guys soon, I guess." He gave a two-fingered salute, and then 3 portals opened up to take the green-haired teen and his devices with him. A rush of air came through. The portals closed, and the room felt eerily cold from the change in temperature. "What the actual fuck?" Iida said. No one could find the heart to admonish him for his hypocrisy. Chapter 2. Meetings. Class A was taking another big risk. A trip to the mall. With the last time being a disaster, the class was nervous about returning to the mall, especially in the light that Midoriya was in frequent contact with the League of Villains. Surprisingly, the trip had gone well. Just a minor incident where a dark shadow zoomed across the food court to snag an ice cream cone from the shop, where Tokoyami had apologized profusely to the man before paying for 2 cones to make up for the inconvenience. The green-haired teen was sitting on a bench near one of the many hero merch stores, with Uraraka and Todoroki next to him. Midoriya was laughing at something Uraraka had said, while Todoroki had a faint smile. The class was mingling nearby, them taking a break in a medium-sized square to catch their breath. 3 figures approached the square and made their way to where the bench was. One of them was wearing a black hoodie that covered his face, and the other one next to him was wearing a large medical mask. The third was a lady with brown hair and sunglasses. The trio on the bench looked up, and 2 of them gasped in shock. The class whipped their heads over as Midoriya said a greeting. "Krusty, Tabs, what are you doing here? Oh, hi, Himiko-chan." Looking closely at the first 2 figures, the class could see they were in fact the 2 villains, and while the woman looked nothing like Toga, they all knew of her shape-shifting quirk. Class A instantly began preparing for a fight. Yaoyorozu thinking of weapons, Sato grabbing a sugar packet, and Bakugo's fists began lighting. "Oh, Izuku-kun," Toga said in her disguise, her voice drowning in a way that made Uraraka mad. "How do you always know it's me?" "If I told you that," Midoriya began, "then the game wouldn't be fun anymore, would it?" Toga giggled in response, before the student turned to the other 2 villains. "So what do you guys want?" Shigaraki glared at Midoriya, causing several people to tense. "You ratted me out in the last game." Dabi spoke up next. "And you were imposters with Shigaraki, and I can't kill him, so I have to kill you." Midoriya nodded in acceptance of the reasons. He sighed before he stood up to brush off his pants. At the movement, several of his classmates tensed again, seeming to wait for the unofficial leader of Class A's villain attacks to make his move. "So what'll it be then, Dabi?" "Say your last words before I burn you to ashes," the burned man said. Todoroki growled slightly at that, but then saw the twinkle in the teal eyes and calmed a bit. From his limited social skills, it seemed like this was a playful taunt instead of an actual threat. Midoriya hummed before his face lit up in delight. "I got him. You sure you want to hear him?" Dabi looked cautious, but he gave the confirmation. "I'm blue, dabba-dee-dabba-die, dabba-dee-dabba-die, dabba-dee-dabba-die." The green-haired mischief maker sang, and repeated the line again, and again, and again. Toa grinned hugely, the face looking wrong on the borrowed disguise's face. She giggled quietly, growing a bit louder when Shigaraki began to laugh. Shigaraki sputtered out a laugh before it turned into complete laughter as the young adult legitimately cackled in surprise and delight. He slapped his hand with 4 fingers and wrapped his arm around him to try and stave the pain from laughing so hard, even as tears ran down his face. The class stood in shock, turning lax in their defenses, even as Midoriya kept singing and Dabi stood in complete silence, a look of disbelief on his face. The incident was never reported. "Where the hell is Shigaraki?" yelled one of the heroes. Deku couldn't tell who it was. The chaos in the area was too much. The League of Villains had decided to attack Edgeshot during one of his patrols, which summoned a large group of heroes to retaliate. Deku had been on patrol with a million in the area for the late night agency and was called to help. Within the turmoil, Shigaraki had disappeared in the fight, and finding him would be the key to stopping the attack, either by capturing him or making him retreat. Realizing this, Deku stood up and ran to an abandoned car. He dodged a stray stream of fire from one of Edgeshot's sidekicks, and used Black Whip to grapple himself to the car while twisting out of the way of one of Spinner's throwing knives. He landed on top of it and took a look around the area, grimacing when he couldn't find the hand-covered adult. Deku grinned, however, when he thought on how to find the villain. He took a deep breath, and immediately people sensed it and looked over to him to see what was going to happen. Perhaps some big speech about how wrong Willily was. Maybe a call for Shigaraki to face him, or to be called a coward. Instead, "Can I get a Hoya?" Blank faces stared at him until a faint, raspy voice was heard. "Hoya!" And the heroes turned to see Shigaraki grinning like a madman at Deku, before he dodged an air blast and ducked into one of Kurogiri's portals. A knock at the door had the class scrambling, in case it was Aizawa coming to make them run the tracks again. Instead, a middle-aged man walked through, and the class watched confused. Midoriya ran over, asking if he needed anything, before taking a step back as a man's skin began falling off in piles of grey goop. Himiko Toga. The class yelped as she stood there naked, some getting ready for a fight, others fumbling to get their phones. Midoriya, however, nonchalantly grabbed a blanket to wrap around her, accepting a hug from the girl. "Himiko-chan, you know you're not supposed to be here. I assume it's an emergency?" "Yeah, I'm not allowed to go get my fill from civilians, and I kind of cleaned out all the jerks in the area, and I need some blood to tide me over so I don't go on another serial murder spree like my first time." "That would be a bad idea," Midoriya conceded, leading her over to the kitchen sink. Sarah and Kaminari scrambled away to let them approach. The class in general once again looked shocked, no matter how many times Midoriya had defied logic to them. "So how much do you need?" "Same as if you went to a donation, Izuku. That'll be enough for me to go get the rapist that escaped prosecution down a couple blocks." Choga cheered. Uraraka and Asui grimacing in fear. "All right," Midoriya said, allowing Toga to stab him with a syringe from somewhere. He watched as the blood was sucked up, using Black Whip to bring one of Sato's cookies over to him. 5 minutes passed, enough for Aizawa to appear to watch frozen with the class, before Toga pulled the syringe out. "Thanks, Izuku," she said cheerfully, giving him a hug and a peck on the cheek before taking a drink and walking towards the door. The green-haired teen took a bite of his cookie and called out to the villainess. "Look into how you react to the animal's blood. Might be easier than coming to me." He may have gained a stern lecture from Aizawa about boundaries and when and where to do his infiltration mission, but Midoriya didn't really care. They thought they had seen all. They had watched Midoriya play video games with Shigaraki, taunt Dobby and Liv, and even give Toga blood. But no one was prepared to come down to the common room for breakfast before class to see said gremlin making pancakes with Twice, while Kurogiri and Mr. Compress sat at the table. Bakugo took one look at the group, said, "Fuck this, I'm going to the vending machines," before stalking off, Kirishima and Mina following him. Yaoyorozu sighed before making her way around the cooking pair to reach the fridge, grabbing a glass of milk to pour for herself, Jiro, and Kaminari. Sato walked over to help Twice, who was struggling with how much batter to put on the griddle. So maybe they had gotten a little used to it, and Twice didn't seem that bad of a guy once he got past the whole divisive personality and villain persona. But everyone was on edge, with Kurogiri and Mr. Compress there. "So, Midoriya-san," Kurogiri began before he was interrupted. "Just Midoriya is fine, Kurogiri." "Midoriya," the portal man relented, "will you be stopping by tonight? I fear Shigaraki is growing angry with the lack of a proper video game partner." "I'll say," Mr. Compress said, "Damn kid is disintegrating everything that isn't his gaming system if it pisses him off. It's getting annoying to enter the living room." Yeah, I'll be down tonight. Tell him I'll bring my Switch. We can do Mario Kart or something." That seemed to placate the only two responsible members of the league, who took their leave after begrudgingly taking a pancake each. Musutafu was under attack. Specifically, UA was. An overseas group of villains had just relocated to Japan, and apparently they were the top dogs in whatever country they were from. So they didn't seem to like it when Ojiro had taken out one of their higher-ranking grunts during a patrol. They stormed the UA campus, breaking through the gates thanks to one of their members having a technological quirk. Most of the villains were in the fields near the dorm rooms, being taken care of by the students. Early on in the battle, the League had shown up to help with the villains, using the excuse that they wouldn't allow another group to take their prize. Everyone knew it was because of Deku. Said teen was, of course, in the center of the chaos, where 3 of the top operatives of the foreign villains were. He was joined by Shigaraki, Creati, and Earphone Jack. Creati was facing off with the third in command, her swordsmanship expertly showing as she hammered down the villain's defenses. Earphone Jack was dealing with the second in command, since he was a bat mutation with large ears. Her sound waves would make a good attack against the sensitive hearing. Shigaraki and Deku were working together against the main villain, a woman with blood-red hair. Her quirk seemed to be some sort of radiation control, with it focused in her hands. She used it to shoot off blasts of concentrated energy, which Shigaraki and Deku easily dealt with. They dodged around each other and the blasts, effortlessly working together as they approached the villain. "So, what game is next on the list?" Deku asked, as he ducked under a toxic green blast. "Overwatch," Shigaraki said, taking the chance to leap forward and swipe at the villainess. He missed, however, and snarled as he was forced back. Her touch was just as deadly as his own. Deku groaned. "Seriously, Overwatch? We haven't even finished Arc yet. We're still on Scorched Earth." "Well, why are we still on there then?" Shigaraki cried, jumping out of the way as Deku launched himself to leave a nasty blow on the villain's leg, before backflipping out of the way to keep himself safe. "Because you wanted to play Minecraft again," the hero student said in midair, landing cleanly next to Shigaraki, missing the hands on his arms by no more than 2 inches. Shigaraki didn't even flinch. "Well, it's a good game." "Never said it wasn't." "Guys!" All three turned to look over at the noise, revealing itself to be Earphone Jack leaning on Createe. "Regulator, stop her now!" Villain looked at Hero while the foreign villain watched in disbelief at their coordination. The two shrugged and Shigaraki went first. He touched the ground and the decay raced forward, making the blood-red hair go upwards as the woman leapt into the air. Taking his cue, Deku spurred into action. At 68% power, lightning cracked around him as he wordlessly did a Manchester smash, his steel-covered boots slamming into the villain's stomach, knocking her to the ground as the decay faded. He watched for a second as she twitched in agony, until he was satisfied with her lack of movement to put the handcuffs on her. He turned back to Shigaraki, ignoring the exasperation of Createe's face at how quickly the fight could have been ended. "We're finishing Arc, and then we're doing Overwatch, and I want to be Genji." "Ugh, fine," the raspy voice replied.